Recording. Just for safe measures, you want to say it again?
I do. All right. I'm going to go ahead and call the Central Business District meeting to order, and we will start with our staff updates, starting with the facade grant.
Okay, so the facade grant for 2026 has been paused for this cycle. The 2025 cycle is still ongoing, and we've been checking in with our people, and there have been a few mentions of having difficulties getting contractors scheduled, but everything is moving forward. Any questions on facade grant? No? Okay.
I'm glad we'll talk about it later in the year, right?
Yeah.
How many people have applied?
So the cycle for the 2026 was paused, so we didn't get any applications for that. Launch Christiansburg is continuing as scheduled. So right now we're in the process of completing the curriculum. So the draft is almost complete, and then once we get that done, it'll move to copy editing and then to design. We're currently working on selection process updates. So we're exploring some different options between maybe having a rubric or maybe having a panel of people to make decisions, and then how to document that process a little bit more thoroughly. So we're exploring options there. We're going to start advertising for applications and for the program in general in April, and then applications are going to open in May. And the last thing is we are currently accepting sponsors, and we have $10,000 committed so far, hoping for just a little bit more. All right, any questions? Okay.
All right, then we will go to our discussion items, beginning with the Virginia Main Street program.
So Miles is going to pull up if you could start the presentation.
Okay.
So Virginia Main Street the Virginia Main Street program is a program that has been used across Virginia, but it's also part of a national organization or a national effort. The details we are still trying to put together because a lot of the work and conversation that happened regarding this were prior to many of us starting with the town. It kind of carried into me starting, but Miles wasn't here. Retta, I guess, wasn't here when it started, the point is there was a transitional period. And so the people who were handling the conversations are no longer here. But we aren't in a position where we're really looking to make any big moves or changes. We just sort of wanted to revisit and regroup because not only are there new people that are having the conversation with the town, there are also new people having the conversation with Downtown Christiansburg, Inc., which this program requires there to be a nonprofit organization that's part of this conversation. And then we also have new town council members. So we just thought it might be a good time to take a look at it, see what our thoughts are, and if this is something that we would like to, at the very least, consider moving forward. So this is a presentation that they sent us. I thought we could just go through it briefly. I haven't gone into it in too much depth, but I thought it might give us an overview of kind of what it is that they're looking at.
When you say they, you mean
Main
downtown
Street. No, I'm sorry. This is from the Virginia Main Street program. That's who gave us this presentation. Okay. So this says a time-tested community development approach is what Main Street is, reinvigorating your traditional downtown neighborhood, commercial district or commercial district/commercial district, economic development through leveraging your place-based assets, grassroots revitalization strategy. So essentially, they have a tiered approach in place to help revitalize downtown Main Street areas. It's proven successful in a lot of areas, and it's something that the town at one point had considered and is currently a part of, but we just want to revisit to see if we want to go to take the next step in that. So outcomes of a Main Street effort. utilizes historic assets and buildings, public-private collaboration, preserves and creates jobs, increases tax revenue, community pride, vibrancy, regional or sense of place. These are some of the benefits to the stakeholders. So the program claims to benefit business owners, residents, property owners, and local government. So increased sales, grant opportunities, educational opportunities for business owners, for residents. It enhances marketplace, a sense of the community. It's also going to, provide more opportunities for businesses for residents to go downtown. Property owners, increased occupancy rates, increased property values, all great things. And then from our position as local government, increased tax base, job growth, new development. This is just kind of a look at the 4 points that they address in their program. And here are the 3 tiers of the program. So currently we are in tier 1, exploring Main Street. It says, see the possible through Main Street approach, so better understanding the program, building a foundation to make sure that the program is successful, and building a powerful grassroots network. To enter into the 2nd tier of the Main Street program, mobilizing Main Street, there are a couple of things that have to happen. So and this is going to be part of, I would imagine, a much larger conversation, but if we are committed to moving forward with this program and exploring what success might look like for us through this program, then we would want to move into mobilizing Main Street. And it says there, targeted organizational development training, forming downtown revitalization program, 2-year commitment, cohort-based approach. So essentially the way that it's been explained to me is that in tier 1, you're sort of fine-tuning, your organizations, you're building relationships, you're working on smaller projects to make sure that there's trust there, because you are working with local government, but then also a nonprofit organization. And I guess now is a good time as ever to kind of start with that as far as the history of the program and what I know of the history of our relationship with DCI. So we were in tier 1. We had wanted to go in tier 2. At that time, there was someone from the town who was handling, and I say handling loosely, I think, but helping with coordination from a town perspective with DCI on
What DCI is?
Downtown Christiansburg, Inc.
Yeah.
So they were handling communication on behalf of the town with DCI on how we could move into the 2nd tier. That person left the town. And so there was a lapse in communication and things got a little wonky, but that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is one thing that I found during that time was that there is some trust lost between DCI and between the town. And I think that from DCI's perspective, there is some feelings of trying really hard and being volunteers, but feeling like maybe they didn't receive the support that they wanted. So the previous president of DCI is no longer there. And then the person handling communication for the town is no longer here. Not that they did anything wrong, because they didn't. But what we do have now are myself and Miles and a whole new team who are interested in having the conversation about exploring the Main Street program. And then we also have Alan, who is the new president of DCI. And Alan and I have had a lot of open and honest conversations. I think, and I'm going to let him just briefly introduce himself, but I think that Alan and I are on the same page with feeling like there are some things that DCI could have done differently to build trust, but there are also some things that maybe the town could do differently moving forward to help be better partners. So what we're really focused on is moving forward and what that looks like. And I think that we're both really committed to trying to do that together if that is the town's wish. So Alan, I don't know if you want to say.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I think some of you are already familiar with me through different measures, but One thing I am being careful and specific is when I'm here with DCI, I'm a private citizen. I live here in Christiansburg, but I'm also a business owner, and there's a lot of, I think, hope for what downtown could be, and I'd love some of the buildings. There are pieces that I think I'd love my family to be able to purchase, live, work, and long term. So that's where a lot of my personal feelings come in. But as DCI as a whole, we are at a good point where downtown's going through some construction, and we see ourselves as doing the same. We are almost entirely a new board, 5 new board members, 4 that have served some time. But we also think that's a great opportunity for the new life to come in and new momentum, and also for us to rectify issues that we've had internally for the organization. We feel like now is a good time for us to say, all right, we have to fix what's there. We have to make sure, in particular, when we come to our conversations with the town, that when you're able to ask those questions of, have you done this? We can say yes. And while we are a volunteer basis, we are doing our best to put in as much time here as we can, and have some of those conversations with the town where we can't, because truthfully, if I could be at home with my daughter every night, that's where I want to be. So we're in that spot where we know there's some hard work ahead of us, but we look forward to what that can mean. And in particular, working with Virginia Main Street and the Main Street America program, and working with the town to go through that, we think there's really good benefit for all involved.
Yeah, one thing when I was learning about the Main Street program that actually Christine Waltz pointed out to me before being on town council was some of the things that I was unaware of that had kind of happened between DCI and the town. And I think that it's really important to acknowledge that things, you know, for a variety of reasons, maybe weren't working great. But we have people who are committed to trying to improve that moving forward. So that's where we're at right now. In the fall, as long as the federal budget, some things work out there, applications will be open for the second tier, Mobilizing Main Street. We do not want to apply in the fall. That is too soon. There's too much that needs to happen. And I am going to speak on behalf of DCI because you said this yesterday, but Alan mentioned that you know, DCI has a lot of work that they want to do to be ready to be a good partner. And in return, I also feel like we have a lot of work that we want to do to be a good partner as well. So the thought would be that DCI during this time will work on things like, you know, structure and turnover and how they handle things like that, and just address some of those things that maybe they've struggled with in the past. The next round of applications won't be open for another 2 years. So we've got some time to work on building the relationship, you know, seeing how we can work together and just remedy some of that, because you know, it's fine and well that Alan and I may be, you know, positive Polly's and want to push this forward, but also, you know, there are a lot of people that have been on town council or been in the town, or a lot of citizens who have experienced things, you know, through this project that maybe served on DCI, that maybe there are some hurt feelings, and we want to give that some time to be able to address it and just work on some stuff. So the point of bringing this up, and I had hoped that we would have some before and after comparisons, because if you're unaware of really the scope of what the Virginia Main Street program can do, it really is incredible. Withville, I know, has done it, and we just learned yesterday, they're in the running for a national award for the things that they've been able to just completely turn around. I mean, one thing that I hear all the time is just how people want our downtown to look differently. And that takes a lot of work from a lot of different areas. So one additional thing that I wanted to acknowledge is that Retta and Dari are here. That's who's really going to be carrying a big, you know, heavy lifting on projects like this. This is their world. So all we're coming and asking and bringing this up is just to gauge the interest in continuing the conversation. That's all we're asking, and seeing, does this sound like something that could be beneficial for our town? Do we want to continue asking some questions with the Virginia Main Street organization? Do we want to continue some conversations to try and build relationships with DCI and see if maybe in 2 years this is a path that we would like to try and take?
I need to clarify. So Virginia Main Street is a program
By the,
by
yeah.
DHCD, which
Yes.
is Department of Housing and Community Development. And I think that because I just had started here when, I think that might have been my first council meeting that I was at when they came, the president of at the time came and did a presentation. And then the employee we had at the time did her presentation. And I think there was a misunderstanding about what the program actually is. Also, I don't think at the time that there was an understanding from staff perspective either, because the program had just changed. It used to be that if you were in certain levels of the program, that you were not eligible for any grants, and it's kind of like you were just acknowledged on the website. So that changed. Tier 1 now does have some benefits, which you saw. But as you increase your activity and your tier, then you are eligible for more grants. And that is with DHCD, which DHCD is like the main provider for economic development grants, for downtown revitalization grants, for planning grants, which one of the things I planned on doing, which would be something that would help for the town, would be a planning grant for our downtown. And in doing that, that is something we would partner with the regional commission on. And that is very specific to what would be viable downtown, what they do architecture renderings, they give a lot of resources for the specific downtown, application. So that would be something that would help, and that's the program that we need to form, and those things that would all fall into that and fall together, especially since it's going to be 2 years before we can apply for that. And at the time, I was new then, but I did offer to the president for the person over DCI that I would help with that program because I have had experience in it. So
That is something I learned earlier this year in one of their grant pieces, because it's coming up a deadline of May 1st for this period. But they do have in particular one planning grant that is only available to the locality, but you have to have a VMS program to facilitate. That's $75,000. And if you get that and go past the planning phase, it's up to $850,000.
Yeah.
That is for the building of an actual facilitation. So I think there's a lot of those pieces that we're learning and we're going through. I also think to what you mentioned, I think this period gives us, DCI has never existed in a spot where transition has been thought of and planned for. And we're at the point where I'm a firm believer it's organization over person, no matter what. So I think we've got to get those ducks in a row for ourselves and with the town so that, God forbid, Christina and I aren't here, there's someone else that's doing that work, and it doesn't have to rely on passion, because passion is fantastic, but it has to be organization wide. So that's what we're looking forward to working with the town on, and we're my goal with our board, we're going to apply for 4 grants this year. One of those is going to be VMS, but outside of that, we want to be those good stewards as well. And we'll get there, but I think everyone understands government and nonprofit both move slow, and that's sometimes for good reason.
That's a good point.
In reading this,
Mhm.
brings some questions. You didn't know it. I was the Main Street Director for the city of Radford for years. So this is not new to me, and I can tell you the reason why it worked is because the city helped fund it. And as a Main Street Director, I was an employee of the city. Our goal was to make Main Street Radford self-supporting. And when I put together the approach for a special assessment tax district, several business people got the ear of the mayor and basically killed the whole program because nobody wanted to pay 2 or 3 more % property tax for their buildings in the Main Street thing. And when their Main Street program finally floundered, it was because the board of directors forgot to look at the budget and they went $10,000 in the hole. And so the city said, that's enough. That wasn't under my watch. But, I'm kind of disturbed because it says DCI has been progressing well in exploring the program, which I know they were, but there's some hard opposition and contention from elected officials as well as the general public. So I'm kind of curious as what the opposition was for a program that does all these good things. I can tell you that when it works, it really works.
Yeah, so, and I was a part of the conversation when we got denied. When I kind of fell into the conversation, when we had the turnover, it was right at the end of the application process for phase 2. And so we went to town council, asked for a letter of support. They gave a letter of support. And then we applied and got denied. And then we had a meeting with Virginia Main Street that they requested where it was myself, the previous DCI president, our town manager and assistant town manager at the time. And they went over all of this feedback that you all have. And essentially a big part of why we were not approved to go into phase 2 is because they felt that there was minimal support from our locality. So I think that the deciding factors are far away, but they somehow know. They know, about our town council meetings and the conversations. And to get the letter of support, I think was a difficult thing to do. I think that there were some really strong opinions about not wanting to agree to the letter of support. And I can't remember what the vote was, but I definitely don't think it was unanimous. But that being said, that's tough when you hear that, but at the same time, I do think that there are some understandable concerns about not wanting to commit to that based off of experiences between the town and DCI in the past. There were some things that have fallen through the cracks. And I really do think that there is good and bad kind of both sides, and that really needs to be addressed. But they reiterated to us yesterday that they felt like the town support and how it seems that the town feels about the program was a pretty big barrier, and it didn't seem like we were ready to move forward in something like that. And if we're not, then we're not. And if we're not interested, we're not.
It seems like the town wants to do those very things. You've got a grant program, which falls right in line with the design. You've got the Launch Christiansburg program, which falls right in line with economic development. You've got all the concerts and stuff, which falls right in line with promotions. It's like we're already doing those things,
Yeah.
which is great. And so we just need to capitalize on the fact, well, we already know what we're doing. If we can get into the Main Street program, I think all it takes really is getting, I'm going to say grassroots support, where you go door to door to the businesses and say, support this. And as long as you're not asking them for money out of their pocket right then,
Yeah.
I think they'll all say, well, yeah, that's what we want.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I have been waiting for that to be an eclectic place where I can go. It's really close to my house. Other people say, like, puzzled, why isn't this? Because it would be a great place to go, because it's really hard to go to Blacksburg Park.
Sure.
And we have great musicians in our town,
Right.
and I can see square dancing, I mean, do something,
Right.
but I mean, it's
Yeah.
a
I
lot.
believe some of the onus on that is like Christina said, it's DCI as well. I think part of that relationship is the education aspect of, when we get to Virginia advancing Main Street, there are monetary implications that you have to follow
Sure.
their guidelines. When that first happened, it started with, I believe, DCI saying, hey, we need this money, as opposed to here are the pieces that go towards it. And so that's also in our guideline of how do we build and how do we ramp in a way that makes Virginia Main Street say, okay, we see the future. But also knowing that our organization has existed for 13 years and we are still kind of fledgling dough. Now we have to rebuild, but we also want to rebuild with their system in mind and know that if that is where the town wants to go, we're going to be partners. If it's not where the town wants to go, we can understand. But then that means as an organization, we have to figure out where to go next, because Virginia Main Street, you must follow many specific guidelines to go through their programs. But there are, as far as Main Street America, 60+ cities across the US that can serve as positive examples.
Yeah.
So,
Going forward, anything I can do to help, I've been there. I've
well,
been a speaker at the Virginia Main Street National thing in Milwaukee. I've been probably to half a dozen or more of the Main Street communities in Virginia. So it's not new to me, and I'm here to help.
well, and as a downtown business, we've got some pieces that are underway that we're also trying to follow the Main Street America guidelines a little closely, or more closely, so that we can represent our downtown more thoroughly.
And Hillsville was in the same bracket, the same tier as Christiansburg. And I was able to apply and get the planning grant there. So that is a start. Then from there, you still are eligible, even if you still are in tier 1 for the downtown revitalization grant. So it's not gonna impact our ability to do those things.
And I appreciate what you said earlier, Retta, about clarifying, because I think that at the beginning I said, Virginia Main Street Organization, it is a program. And as I mentioned before, it is, once we get into it, there's gonna be a lot of bigger conversations if that's the path that we want to go. And it will be a lot of planning, and I would assume engineering and administration, obviously town council and all those things. Where we're at right now is none of that. All we're asking is just, is this something we'd like to continue asking questions on? So I think the way that we're following this kind of new version of the agenda, we can come back to that and discuss a path forward. If that's all right with you. Okay. So I'll go ahead and move into Amtrak. There's not a lot to say here. We just wanted to bring up the various conversations that are going on regarding Amtrak. So on one hand, we've got people who are dealing with the logistical side of things. Retta, I know you've been involved in some conversations. So if there's anything you want to say about logistically speaking, the things that you guys are talking through or have talked through?
So I am in a committee with Mike Kelly. Not the mayor. Just to clarify. And we are discussing with RKNK. They're doing a program that they're doing the study for our Cambria. The official name for it. Cambria Crossing, or it's the trail to make it and make the connection between like where the aquatic center is and Eagle Park and getting down to the rail station and then through Cambria. So they're working on that study there. They've been coming over and looking at the logistical side as far as that curb there up on Depot is a little difficult because of the grade and the sight distance and everything, but we're trying to work through all of those things, so.
Who's RK&K?
The engineering group that we utilize for, I guess, traffic and mobility. Is that?
Will there be any opportunity down by the tracks in the station for a private business or contractor, like for food service or souvenir shop or something like that? That all be handled by Amtrak.
Do you mean like on their property?
Yeah,
That would be for the passenger rail to decide. It'd be Amtrak. I don't know if they'd lease space out to somebody, their building. As far as the plans go, it is just the station. So in the future, I don't know. That's which Chris could have probably helped us out on that a little bit to know the plan, but the downtown Cambria area, I know that the old depot there was purchased, and I think there probably are plans to upgrade that and to revitalize it into something.
Who's purchased it?
Well,
Oh. That's okay, all
Um,
right. I'm just concerned.
it's not, it's a good.
Okay, good.
Don't be concerned. But, we're going to need to do something about the zoning in Cambria if we're gonna ever think about, the availability to a variety of businesses there, because right now parking has hindered a lot of things that have desired to locate in Cambria. Our downtown is B2, which is central business. And so that lessens the requirement for parking. And so that really needs to probably happen in Cambria. To be able to fill the spaces and to allow for some revitalization down there.
yeah. I
There's
just see an
B3.
opportunity to sell a lot of coffee.
Yeah, there's
Agreed.
B3 zoning and,
So what did you say it is written?
B3.
It's B3.
B3, which is general business, but I recommend that it be central business, which would be B2, which, yeah, that decreases the requirement for parking and setbacks. Yeah.
So Daria and Mike are having that conversation. I'm sorry, Retta and Mike are having that conversation. Scott is on the passenger rail authority group. And then we're also having conversations about things like impacts to Cambria, wayfinding signage. What should downtown businesses know? What should we expect? What's transportation gonna look like? Are we gonna have, transportation to and from that area for visitors? And so there are conversations about how we can bring all of these pieces together, but we wanted to bring it up in this meeting just to see if our chair and co-chair have any thoughts or interest in having conversations like this in our committee meetings. Do we feel like that is relevant and important to discuss? And do we feel that engaging and pursuing in conversations around, what's the impact of this to our immediate community in Cambria going to look like? I feel like that's an important question to ask, and maybe we should look into, but we wanted to get your all's thoughts. And I will say preemptively, I have reached out to a couple of people with Amtrak who we've worked with on the ribbon cutting and a couple other things to just have a preliminary meeting and say, what are some of the blind spots that we might have? What are some of the things that maybe other communities have experienced and say, man, I wish someone could have given us a heads up about that, to see if there are things that, tips and tricks that they could give us as far as serving, the people who are going to be immediately impacted. If we want to take that a step further, I'm sure, Retta would be willing to, continue to update the group on conversations that they're having. I don't want to overpromise, but if you're going to be here. But that's definitely, her lane. I'm bringing it up just to mention there are multiple conversations going on, multiple approaches necessary, and seeing if you all see the same validity or feel it's not a priority of this group.
And for even more kind of context, as we're going into the comprehensive plan rewrite this year, the Cambria economic development is featured prominently in a lot of the comprehensive plan, transportation, walkability. The passenger rail coming through is definitely visible in our comprehensive plan. So kind of how the committee looking ahead wants to, what questions need to be asked now, who do we need to involve? Those would be some things to think about.
It's great.
Well, I'm once again ecstatically excited. I actually rode that train.
That's awesome.
I had to dress up to get on that train. So when you said people impacted,
Yeah.
did you mean the neighbors or did you?
I think I mean both. I think the business.
Any of this decision, are we planning on including them? So I don't know if people understand the dynamic change that's gonna happen.
Yeah, and that's what I agree. I don't know that they do either because I don't
Well, there's
understand.
just one guy that when I was canvassing, he was like, yeah, that's gonna be down. He was all excited about
Yeah,
the train.
Yeah, but what is that really gonna look like? And I don't think those conversations have been had. And so that's where Miles and I have, kind of come in to bring this conversation to central business because, Miles is handling the communication with businesses. And from my perspective, and this may be wrong, but from my perspective, I feel like businesses are definitely going to be impacted and it sounds good, but are there going to be challenges? Are there things we haven't thought of? And I feel like there
It's a really
probably
tight-
are.
It's a tight space there. And then plus you're gonna have all the tech students who don't want to get on the interstate.
Yeah,
And then there's a great bookstore there, so they could get a book before they get
Right.
on.
right. But then what I consider is, what Miles is doing, but then also how we're communicating to the residents. And so have we done a good job, preparing the residents for what's about to come? And maybe I'm overreacting and it's not going to be that big of a deal, but to me, it feels big. And it feels like conversations that need to be had. And it feels like a disservice if we aren't preparing the people that are going to be directly impacted. Obviously, I want our whole community to know. Obviously, we're really excited. We wouldn't trade it for the world. But I'd rather be prepared for some of those dark spots, blind spots that I mentioned, than be caught off guard and then have to be reactive to it.
We have a neighborhood meeting where, because some people may not even know that the train is.
You can do a lot of things.
But I mean, if those people in that area were notified that we have a meeting here or something.
Yeah,
So
so
find out what's going on, because I think there are people that don't know that.
I agree. Yeah, go ahead.
So if it was town council's desire to rezone that area, if that was something that we wanted to try to accomplish, it would require, the buy-in of the property owners. They would have to give permission to do that. Then that area, every part of that area that touches any of those impacted parcels would receive from planning the notifications. So just like we do with any rezoning or conditional use permit or anything like that, it would be advertised in the newspaper and we would advertise it on our website. It would be posted downstairs. And then we would post signage on a lot of properties, some more signs.
Yeah.
And then we would also mail certified letters in which they are required to sign for.
And parking is probably gonna be,
Right.
and it's tech students parking.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So that might, because if you park and then you're gonna come back over the weekend,
And that's what's limiting. The parking is very limiting for the area.
but we'll have transportation, you'll probably have buses going there when the train is due to leave and come, right?
Yeah, BT does plan on making that a designation or destination.
Yeah. Okay. So same with, Virginia Main Street, we can hold off on action until we get a little lower down, but I just wanted to bring that up so you can kind of be mulling that around. Last thing on our list, is gonna be committee goals, and this definitely, is something we want to talk about because it considers a lot of the things that we've talked about up above. So it seems to me that the Central Business District Committee has ebbed and flowed and grown and, changed in some ways. And so revisiting if we feel like it should still be Central Business District Committee, or if we want it to be the I don't know, Business District Committee. You had a recommendation, I think, or an idea.
I just said something
Does it
along
need
the
to-
lines of economic development.
There we
because
go.
We're looking at the town holistically rather than just because central business is right now only downtown. So we're by designating it as Central Business District Committee, our district is downtown. So
And I
we're
think,
discussing outside of that, it doesn't really fit the realm of this committee.
and I'm not sure historically how many things outside of downtown we have had on the docket for discussion. I know that the facade grant program was originally intended for only downtown, and then there was an expansion of that. And so that definitely makes things a little wonky if we're supposed to be only focused on downtown. I also know there's been discussions of, and Retta, I don't know if you have more information than I do, but considering downtown sort of a district, but then also Cambria sort of a district.
We have districts throughout the town. So, we already have labels as like uptown.
Right, but in terms of the business focal points of those two areas. So is that what this committee wants to focus on, downtown and Cambria?
When you say economic development, that could include the industrial parks. I'm not saying we should do that. I'm
Right,
just saying
right,
It's kind of
right.
vague terms that.
So,
We do have businesses throughout the entire town. So if it's
Right.
business that you want to
Roanoke
focus
Street.
on, yeah, if you
Well,
want to
that's-
focus on business, there's multiple labels for each.
like if it was economic development, is that all of the more box stores in Uptown? So bringing that up to just see how we feel about the name, if that is a conversation you all want to have. And then I feel like there was something else with,
Realistically speaking, where does most of your sales tax revenue come from? Comes from Uptown, I'm sure. And so I think saying central business is kind of a misnomer, because I think it even says on your website that it would include Uptown. So maybe just ought to say business development. Or you could call it retail, because that's mostly what we talk about. It's retail. We don't talk about manufacturing.
right, like restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And since you already have a representative for downtown, DCI, if I had a business in Uptown, I would be making an Uptown organization, just like DCI has downtown, just to do my businesses.
Sure.
Because, they have issues too.
watches the video recording and wants to start an organization.
The thought behind that, I mean, it would be nice if we could have at least one representative from every district.
Yeah, Uptown,
That's like-
Midtown,
The bike.
Seymour Motor Mile.
One of the committees I attended, I can't remember anyway, maybe it's the state, I can't, but comes from Uptown. I think it's the Bikeway Walk. No, sustainable maybe.
That's
That's the
Not
sustainable.
bikeway, walkway.
No. It's too early in the morning for most people. But, yeah, that one is, he comes from the, I don't know his name, I can't remember his name, but he's from the uptown, the mall.
So,
As a downtown property owner, I hate to see the emphasis go away from downtown when I think the committee
I
years
agree.
and years ago was started to help promote things downtown.
Yeah, I think
It shouldn't, yeah, because that's the heart of it.
Yeah, and I can see putting downtown and Cambridge together,
Yeah.
but then I'm gonna lose focus downtown.
yeah, I think I agree.
I do know that this is in a discussion that we've talked about as someone focused on downtown, that as we have Cambria and we have, even Midtown, we see them as neighboring districts, and we had a board member say something really impactful to me earlier this year. You can't prosper if your neighbor struggles. So I agree that I would love to see the focus stay central business, even if that begins to incorporate Cambria in the future. But there's nothing stopping someone from uptown to come have those discussions already. I think our downtown and those areas are where we have the largest realm of growth. And so the focus benefits that.
Yeah, and I would also just say to that with Miles here, and then, Miles for the small business side of things, and then our assistant town manager handles more of the economic development conversations, that just because this committee is focused on downtown and maybe downtown in Cambria, or however we want to approach, doesn't mean that we aren't available for support for any business. We are definitely able and interested in supporting all businesses. But it is my understanding that this committee was formed because these are areas that really need a lot of, or downtown was an area that really needed a lot of attention and focus and conversation. Yeah, so we just have to decide what we want to do with that, but
And on the flip side of that too, staff also recognizes that there are areas that need a little more love and care than others, and a little bit more assistance. And so, like I said, downtown, that's something that there's already planned for trying to provide grant funding for the area. So it's not to say that even if this committee has a wider realm of focus, that staff isn't focusing too, because we are. And I think where it makes it hard, this group doing potentially facade grant and launch Christiansburg, and that being open to the entirety of the town, it makes it a little more difficult to just focus on downtown.
So,
one more thing about the facade grant, sorry. With that, to your point, it was a priority in that if you were a downtown business. I don't know that we have anything like that available in launch, but if we wanted to keep it central business and focus on downtown and Cambria, I feel like facade grant, if it were to come back, could still maybe fit under that category, even though it's open to everyone because it's priority for these areas. I don't know, just a side.
There
note,
are
but-
some pieces within VMS and Main Street America that help with that, because they have programs where the way it's built is you look, for example, Launch Christiansburg, they have one called Community Launch. You look at a 1 square mile section and you say, all right, we want to fill all the vacancies. And then you move to the next section. So they've got some pathways that we can hopefully get from them that can showcase how do we encourage the downtown without it being only. So yeah.
And maybe a couple good steps for like wanting to spread the committee's focus and influence without taking on way too much of getting into all the industrial areas and maybe you feel like Uptown is kind of doing well for itself now. It doesn't need quite as much strategic focus for planning. Other than like you have downtown, you have Cambria, you also have Midtown. All three of those districts are identified as our urban development areas. And that's in regards to planning for like, how do you strategically implement mixed uses for those areas? Those are things that are already identified for the
Good
town. So that could be a good blueprint of like, do you want to grow into that? And kind of what's the next step for the group? If it's just staying with downtown for now with the intent to expand to see how the relationships build? Or do you want to expand to that area and bring everyone to the table? Some things to think about.
There's, I don't know which one it is, comprehensive plan, then there's a 20-year plan. One of them has some really cool drawings of, and Megan Dorsett, who owned that, anyway, kind of cool, and Joe Powers. And they have these tall buildings downtown, and so I guess that's what you call mixed use, because there'd be people living at top, and then there'd be things, and maybe that, it may be that not too long, that's the only place that we could go.
Yeah.
And then those concentrated areas are just, it's lively and interesting.
As someone who lives across from the Clifton Town Center that's being built, I'm really excited. I think we have the infrastructure here for that already. How do we move into that becoming the next downtown? Because as someone that, if I could buy a building and have my 30-year mortgage and my family where I work, play, I'm going to be here long term, so.
Sorry, we interrupted.
It's okay. I think I'm away from my thought, but to come back to it, I don't know that I think that this group should prioritize the downtown and historic Cambria. I think it's smart to think about expanding into the Midtown section where there are some consistent goals that maybe they can benefit from some of the work that we're doing for those historic areas. I don't want to exclude if something that we do can benefit the other businesses, like the facade grant program where we prioritize downtown, but if we can open it up because there's room for other businesses to help other businesses, I don't think we need to exclude them. I think our only other option, not only other option, but the other option is creating a different committee, which I would hate to do. We have committees.
No, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
No, so I mean, the focus separately, but I wouldn't want to do that. But I do think I like the priority of it being the down, like it focuses on the downtown and Cambria, those historic areas, because it's part of that, developing that sense of place in the community, like there's strategic reasons and important benefits for the community for doing that. So anyway, but I don't know how we define it so that we can include some of the other businesses into the benefits, like something for the facade grant program, or if we say move the facade grant program out, I don't know.
UDAs, already mentioned, they've been designated, just kind of been sitting there for a long time. Town hasn't really done anything to act on it or to utilize it.
I'm sorry, I missed what you're utilizing.
UDAs, so the urban development areas.
Oh, those plans. Okay.
Yeah, so we have them. So if there is a desire to look more into that, that's part of the community then.
Can we read a little bit and come back maybe next time and we can see where we settle on? Would that be okay?
Would you like?
I
us
don't
to
know. I
send
mean,
you
it depends on
documents?
developers. I mean, I just like the idea. I don't know. I don't know how to implement it or anything. But I see that as a place that we could, grow and it makes sustainable sense, although it is floodplain, but anyway.
So Beth, do you feel, based off of what Tanya said, because I feel like you all are the ones who get to give us some informed, insightful town council information or position. So do you all feel like, Central Business District Committee best reflects the goals that you all share? That's my first question. And then my second question is, do we feel that downtown and Cambria are where we want to be right now with consideration that can span across a variety of areas, but those are our focal points. Are we ready to loop Midtown into that, or do we want to just stick with downtown and Cambria right now? And then as we are able to grow, then maybe bring in Midtown.
I think we should bite it one bite.
I
at a time.
So we're kind of moving into the next section for, but so downtown and Cambria would be the focal points, if I'm hearing you correctly, but that doesn't mean that we are
Limiting it.
limiting it or limiting any, programs may affect other people in other parts of town, other businesses in other parts of town, but those are our focal points. So programs that could help those focal points. And then do you all feel that Central Business District Committee is still appropriate if we're officially hoping to, or if we're gonna loop in Cambria in those conversations?
Because of the trend, I mean, that's a pretty active place. We need
Central
to-
Business District it's my understanding, and I haven't looked into this, but it's my understanding that Central Business District, I thought could just be one area, is that right?
It's central business right now. The district is
Downtown.
downtown.
Right. So do you feel that the name is not appropriate if Cambria is gonna be considered a co-priority of this committee?
It depends on town council's wishes to try to do something in relation to becoming V2, which would be central business.
What we're really talking about right now, if you really get down to it, and it would be really limiting and if you used it, but it's the historical business areas is what we're talking about. That we would like to see revitalized, but you don't want to limit that because that if you put a story count, then Midway and those are not historic.
Brennan, do you feel like you're at the point? And is that, have you all had conversations about wanting to rezone Cambria?
I mean, I've had conversations. Dr. Eagle's been pretty busy.
Sure.
So I've had conversations with her about it. We have not gone in depth because we're kind of just skimming the surface of things and I don't want to overwhelm her. She might run. I
And
don't
that
know.
definitely needs the input from the community.
So do you all feel comfortable with waiting until the next meeting to revisit this and we can get some more, we can have more conversations, Retta and town manager can talk about it and maybe we can come with just some more ideas of as far as the name and the focus and what feels most appropriate?
I also think it'd be beneficial to have Dr. Eagle in the meeting so that I don't want to answer for her for things. And I don't know what exactly she sees as the future of Cambria or downtown or
Her past
or
experience
desire.
might give us some insight too.
Yeah, so that would be my suggestion is to have a meeting where she's present as well.
I mean, right now, you're just trying to regroup and build trust.
Yep.
Basically, you didn't have a focus.
Okay, so it sounds like downtown and Cambria are what you all want to focus on, and we will come back hopefully the next meeting and have some additional information about maybe how we can get there.
Mhm.
That sound good?
Yeah.
So going back to Amtrak, any thoughts on that?
One thing I feel good about, I drove down Depot Street the other day, I thought, oh my God, why people haven't been yelling and screaming about that asphalt path along there. It's falling apart. There's a path that goes down here, but we are soon, according to another thing I have to can barely read, there's a plan there to do part of the path that would connect them up. So that's gonna happen, I think, this year.
That's what I was talking about with the study for RK&K, the NPO.
Because there's gonna be a path that there's money this year, I think. I don't know if it's gonna be done this year, but there's money on Depot Park because that really needs to be done. I can't believe
Yeah, that, like I was saying, that curve there is very difficult to navigate.
What they're coming,
And-
that path comes from, the path comes from where they bought property for the train station. And it doesn't go in that curve. It comes across the street there, Howry's. Comes across,
Back
the street.
behind,
It goes behind there and then it will eventually. Right now, there's,
that is actually a private entrance for they moved the maintenance because they moved it out.
no, we're talking, you're down
Am I
the
the
road.
other
You're in
way?
the wrong part of
Okay.
Depot Street. So when you come, if you're coming from the Aquatic Center
Mhm.
and you go down the road there, on your right is a busted up asphalt.
Okay,
So I think it's Howard Street. So there's money in the 2026 FY 2026. See, I'm using it. So it goes, and that road down there that goes down to Cambria, to the Depot Street.
Mhm.
It's on Depot Street, is asphalt, which is just
Okay.
eaten away. And
yes,
there's a shrub, a rooted hedge right there.
and the drainage isn't. Isn't
And that'll be
helping
all, yeah,
anything. Yeah,
and old garages.
and that'll have to be a drainage project as well. So it doesn't end up like that again.
So any thoughts on the conversation that we had about Amtrak? Do we feel like that's appropriate to discuss in this committee? Do we want to start making that a priority of discussion for the
If we
committee?
don't discuss it here, where would you discuss it? That's fine.
Well, I think staff will discuss it. I think that Dr. Eagle has talked about, I mean, staff's already discussing it in various ways. Dr. Eagle's already talked about bringing us together to have a more, just have improved communication because like I mentioned, they're over here, we're over here, we're over here.
I think it's important to discuss it here, because if anybody does watch these videos, they'll get some information that
Sure.
you didn't have, if you will discuss them in your meeting.
I can't think of any district that's gonna change more when the train comes in Cambria.
Right. Okay, so
Agreed.
so I will talk to, with all these actionable items, I'm gonna talk to Dr. Eagle and make sure that she's good with it. But we're gonna talk about continuing the conversation of Amtrak in central business. And then the last thing, just for action recommendation, would be Virginia Main Street program. Is that something that you all would like to continue the conversation on at some point? Is that something that you all feel?
So did you
You gotta-
say it's 2 years away before you could even apply?
Yes,
For the mobilizing Main Street piece, yeah.
we're already in tier 1.
So I'd say shelve it. Let's get the train in here.
Well, we can do two things, Charlie.
Well, I know, but if you can't do anything for 2 years, then let's don't worry about it for the next month or two.
Well, it would be in 2 years would when we apply to go through the program, which gets us to the last stage. There's still grants, there's still other things that we can do under this tier. So it's not something that we can't do anything on. It's just we can't go through their process of the next. In some of our conversations, though, there were strengths that we could do on the next 2 years. So that by the time we hand in that application, they can go, oh, they've improved this and this and this.
And that was part of our problem the last time is that work needs to start now if we're gonna be a good team in 2 years and be ready to take on something like this. We can't just do it last minute, or we can't just say DCI's got good people, the town's got good people. So hopefully, like, there has to be trust, especially when a lot of that trust has been broken.
It opens us up for more grants. Also, if we have a nonprofit that can apply, and then also the town as a local government. So there's things that we're not eligible for that a nonprofit would be, and vice versa. And I just wanted to mention, I thought of this again, in Whitfield, when they first started their revitalization, like explosion, there was a gentleman who they owned the Edith Bowling Wilson Museum. He ended up purchasing what was a bank and turning it into the Gray's on Main and the Edith Bowling Wilson Hotel. And so he did that on his own, and he was showing up because he was in the meetings when I was there for DHCD. He was showing up and he was trying to go through that process himself. And so he was successful. And then he brought the town into it. But if we can find somebody who would be the first domino that would tip, then we could make a lot more progress
For sure.
more quickly.
100%.
And that gentleman is very nice and he's a great resource. He wants to talk to him.
So the question here, again, none of these are limiting decisions, just a conversation, but do the two of you feel like you would like us to continue the conversation and continue to bring additional information, exploring what it might look like if we were to prepare in 2 years to apply for the second tier?
Yeah, and then maybe we can invite that gentleman to come and talk to us.
I think this is the priority project for us, the Main Street discussion. And I think we've got 2 years to, like you said, establish those great relationships and identify who that domino person can be, which I think, Miles will probably have a huge role in finding what that is. I know there's development happening right now in downtown and also working on developing the buy-in from the council perspective so that we're able to explain what the benefits are. We'll know them well enough that we can explain them very easily. And the next 2 years will go towards developing that buy-in and establishing the foundational relationship that we need to be approved and accepted in 2 years. So for me, that's a priority project.
Okay, so in summary, we're gonna continue talking and we're gonna continue meeting. And we're going to come back with some additional information next week on the conversation of downtown and Cambria. We probably won't have any information about the Virginia Main Street. We're just gonna keep having conversations between the two entities, and if something comes up, we will let you all know. And then Amtrak will also get with Dr. Eagle on and see what that might look like moving forward. Is there anything else right now that feels pertinent to either of you for this committee that you want to see put on or you want to have a conversation about?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm already doing it. So
okay,
whether you all do it or not, I'm doing it.
yes.
So, this is not me, this, the lady that took up me in the museum garden, but also we're around April the 1st, we're going to be taking out the plants that are non-native at the museum. And then we'll be, another lady who helps at the museum is donating plants. So we'll put native plants there. And then I would like to take some of the same plants that are there and wrap it to tie it into these beds here. I haven't asked permission yet,
Mhm,
to put those in those beds like Coreopsis.
mhm.
It's a yellow one, so it would pad repetition. And then I've asked the Montgomery County if I could do the 2 beds in front of the courthouse.
Mhm.
This is what this is. I gotta turn it into them. That's what I've been doing when we're talking. But anyway, so those will be all native ground covers in front of the courthouse there. And then I'll repeat some, if I get permission, I'll repeat some of those into the beds out here. And maybe Joe, one time 2004, Joe asked me to do a plan for his place and it never worked out. But anyway, so if those plants are there and that changes the whole appearance, it looks like somebody there's been looking.
Okay, I like that.
And the arts board is working on, and the arts board is working on items downtown and the signal cabinet.
Maybe we can add just to our standing agenda, one of the discussion items, just a timeline of installation. And I mean, we'll see them as they're going in, but just updates on how they're coming along, if there's any roadblocks that are coming up. I'm excited.
Since you're the representative.
I can bring that here.
I will be here to support you doing that.
All right, we're gonna take all this to Dr. Eagle, make sure she's good with this moving forward. Next meeting is April 28th at 5.
Perfect. One thing that we haven't touched on, which we have
Yes.
just a couple minutes, clarification on what matters are advisory or only or required council action.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about that?
Yeah, This has not been confirmed by town council, so I don't think that we are held to this necessarily. This is just kind of what we've been working on, and I thought I'd go ahead and bring it in as far as our agenda is concerned. But I guess the question would just be, is there anything on here that you or Beth feel needs approval from town council?
Do you mean on things that we discussed for today?
Yes.
Okay, so is this item gonna always be us determining if there's anything that we talked
Yeah.
about? Okay, I see what you're saying. I think right now this is all very, we are gathering
General.
information. I think it will be fine to mention it if we want to report out, a committee reports, just to let people know what we're talking about. So
Sure.
council is informed. I don't think we have any decisions that we're making tonight. I don't see any decisions that we're making tonight.
You also have that document that has the charges of all the committees. So, I mean, that's something that I think.
That's what
we
this is from.
Are intending on approving that, or I guess, making a recommendation.
They're still working on it.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
the
that's-
agenda's from. So.
And I might mention that Bob is restoring a building downtown.
We love that
Mm-hmm.
so much.
Idea domino.
There's the domino.
Sounds nice.
All right.
Anything else? Okay, then we will adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Just a quick note, in case you're interested, the elevator is now installed in the museum.
It is,